I wanted to have a discussion about the subject of integration with respect to Scientology. It's some people think it's a new subject or something that I'm spending a lot of time lately on, and I guess I have been, but it's not new. If you go and look at the welcome section of this blog, in the front cover page, up on the left-hand side, you'll see a welcome tag. Just click on that and you'll see a 1 to 2 page essay that's been there since the inception of this blog. Actually, it's been there for 6 months longer than the inception of the blog, because it was a 1-page web page I had that led up and turned into a blog. It was originally posted in February of 2009, and it really succinctly states my mission, my approach, my philosophy with dealing from the fallout of Scientology and with Scientologists and for Scientology in the future. And from the very beginning, I state in there that I do not limit my practice or my dealing with people to solely the practice of Scientology. I say I draw from a number of disciplines and a number of wisdoms to help people move on up a little higher. Now, people have asked recently of late, hey, what's the program? What's the new program you got going? Well, my answer is that I don't really have a program. My program is mainly the mainline bridge. It's that what I do is I deal with the person in front of me, and I draw from philosophy, science, all manner of different fields, things that are real to them, and communicate to them and give them a broader, deeper, wider, contextual appreciation for what this process is that we're engaging in. What I'm trying to remedy is that the problem with Scientology really fundamentally is you've got this very intense, very workable, very powerful technology for dealing with the cognitive problems people have, okay? And it's approached in a spiritual basis, on a spiritual basis, so that you've got a dual psychotherapy spiritual practice combined that really focuses strongly on the heart of the matter and gets the person in there pitching and witnessing, okay? Because witnessing is really the common denominator between all transcendent practices, contemplative practices that lead towards states of higher consciousness. And of course, the witnessing aspect has its own terminology and its own construct in Scientology, and it has, more importantly, a very strong discipline that makes it extremely workable and predictably workable to handle your mental image pictures, your hang-ups, your defense mechanisms, all these things that make life miserable, make the day-to-day life potentially a nightmare, and also put a ceiling on someone's ability to transcend to higher states of consciousness and awareness. The problem is because of the high-powered, intense focus on it, and because of the cauldron in which its character was molded, which was a very establishment-oriented, conformance-oriented society that put a tremendous amount of counter-intention, a tremendous amount of counter-effort towards this new approach, that tremendous amounts of defense mechanisms were built up. It's imbued in the Wolf and Warp with the policy of Scientology. It's imbued in its ethics system, its morality, in its entire culture, so that by the end of the incredible work that L. Ron Hubbard did, you've got so much baggage included that has nothing to do, and in many cases is quite contrary in effect and in philosophy to the very technology that is so extremely powerful and workable. And you end up at the end of the day spending a tremendous amount of time and effort and courage confronting your demons and exercising them, witnessing, okay, objectivizing that which you have subjectivized, and by the process of doing that, letting loose its hold that it once had on you, okay? there is so much baggage in terms of keeping it protected and keeping it orthodox, that by the time that you attain or have run the course through attaining the benefits that it can then give, you've got so many other counter efforts and so many counter ideas piled on that you have burnished to the point of losing that which you were trying to attain in the first place. Okay? Peace of mind, some level of transcendence of consciousness. Okay? And so that really is the heart of this this whole point that I've made in What is Wrong with Scientology, the book, and I've been making on the blog, asking people to please consider the idea of integrating Scientology. That means integrating things with Scientology and integrating Scientology with things. Okay, so again, it comes back to, well, what's your program? I don't have a program. I use what works and what indicates for the person at hand. Although, I will say, thinking about this, there is one blanket recommendation that I do make, and I make it to everybody. I make it to somebody who's brand new on the bridge so that they have some sort of contextual, they have some sort of broader context with which to appreciate which they're approaching. I give it to people who are anywhere on the bridge, people who have left the church, people who have left staff, who are looking for some level of equanimity and equilibrium in their life. And I give it to people who have gone the entire route of the bridge, training and auditing up through OT8, and are like, hey, what's next? And that common reference that I end up basically recommending to everybody is the Tao Te Ching by Lao Tzu. Now, and I have it on my recommended reading list, which is also on the blog, and have recommended a particular translation by a Stephen Mitchell, which I think is the best one of the thousands, and literally thousands of different translations have been done over the centuries. I think he really captures the essence of and heart of what the philosophy really stands for. Why the Tao Te Ching? Well, first of all, this is not a revolutionary, this should not be a revolutionary idea to you, because if you listen to the lecture by L. Ron Hubbard, it's part of the Phoenix lectures called The Backgrounds of Scientology, you will find that he describes the Tao in some detail and pays a tremendous deal of homage to it, and claims that literally Scientology is predicated on the foundation of the Tao. So it's nothing it should be too shocking or revolutionary for you to do, to pick that up and try to see how it might have applicability in your life and in your practice of Scientology. From an integration aspect, I spoke of Scientology being so intense in terms of practice, in terms of its focus of practice, and all the things that are added to it policy-wise, ethics-wise, etc., that make it this extremely sort of grasping, holding the channels of idea that gets across. I think that the Tao really gives a perspective and really gives some equilibrium and some equanimity to a person in life when counterbalanced against that intensity of practice of Scientology. One of the other major Eastern thought ideas that's sort of central is the whole idea of the yin and yang, the two types of energy or forces that abide throughout the universe, throughout matter, energy, space, and time, and is in play with beings and theta. And that is the yin and the yang, okay? The yin has sometimes been characterized as the feminine or female type of energies, which tend towards inclusiveness, care, compassion, intuitiveness, whereas the yang is the other side of the spectrum, which is more of a drive towards independence, towards rights, towards force, towards rationality. And as you can see, these could have, could seem to be two sides of a pole. They could be polar opposites. But in fact, if you really appreciate and really work with these energies, there's a synergy that's had. And so that, women have access to male type or yang type energies, and men have access to female type or yin type energies. It's a matter of balance. And then, of course, you predominantly have the one that fits with your chemical makeup in terms of your body and mind. But you still have access to those energies, and you still try to create a balance. So you do it with other people, with the relationships you have, both as a family and with groups, etc., and in your interaction with humankind. Scientology, from my perspective, is so weighted on the yang side that it is like yang on steroids. I mean, it is like yang on steroids with regular testosterone injections. And I think that if you don't balance that out with some philosophy of a yin nature, you lose all of what you set out to accomplish in the first place. Ironically, it's those yin energies or those yin philosophies that are at the heart and soul of the auditing process itself. You're learning how to let go. Okay, you're letting go of these things that you've subjectivized, and you're objectivizing and putting them back out in the world where they belong and becoming free of them, losing their hold on you. But with all the other baggage connected with Scientology, you end up, for everything you lose, you're learning to grasp, and you're learning to control, and you're learning to, okay? And so I think that the Tao is the yin to Scientology's yang. It is the philosophy of the way the universe works. Interestingly enough, I talked about how I recommend to people not just material and psychotherapy and spirituality to give them greater contextual appreciation for what it is they're doing, but I also give them material and science, because interestingly, at the cutting edge of quantum mechanics, which is the most advanced level of science that man is engaged in now, they are really mapping and describing the woof and warp of the entire universe and the spirit's connection to it, okay, or involvement with it. And interestingly enough, and these, as we speak, more and more texts are rolling off the printing presses by quantum physicists who are recognizing that their descriptions, or spiritualists, recognizing that the descriptions of the quantum physicists of the woof and warp of the universe, which, because of the advances in technology, we're able to better describe, sound like the Tao Te Ching. They sound like, Buddhist sacred texts. They sound like I Ching. They sound like a lot of this Eastern thought, how they have described the woof and warp of the universe, which tends to indicate that, and tends to serve as a somewhat scientific validation that there is something to their way of looking at things. My contention is this. My contention is it's a crying shame that Scientology can't be used to make that type of perception and consciousness more available to the many, because it's so anchored into this reversal that begins to get you fixated and clinging when it really should be helping you to let go and as is. And so And so I would say that the Tao, if there was anything that was a part of the program, I mean, it's the one thing that I just recommend to anybody, and particularly to anybody engaging in Scientology, whether they're beginning or they're completing and done with it. When I audit people, and I've audited 3 people who had very little to no knowledge of what Scientology is, from there all the way up to clear. I've audited all levels of the bridge, the OT levels, all the grades, all the dynamics, everything, since I've been out on the outside in a non-cult environment with a greater contextual appreciation and understanding of those who receive the auditing. And I must say that I just think that the results are night and day. I think the people that do have access to a broader philosophical base, a broader scientific base, get far better gains. One thing that I definitely do is audit towards ability. In the church, and I know in some other places too, people want to quick get the guy a release, quick get the guy a release, quick get the guy a release, and then throw him on to the next level, because they're rushing for the brass ring. And, they never get to enjoy the journey, 1. But 2, they never develop any abilities. The way we practice is do a grade, state the EP, go out and demonstrate it in life to your satisfaction, then come back and do your next grade. And, that's part of this whole reference I've made before about, learn to walk the walk and not just talk the talk. I think Scientology has been destroyed by this sort of cloistered, emphasis on loyalty and reliance that, you're on the team, so much so that you can get away with the most hideous crimes and the most hideous atrocities as long as you can talk the talk. And I see it in the church and I see it outside the church. And so this is part of walking the walk. And I think that the Tao is the best guide anywhere, bar none, on walking the walk. Yeah, you got formulas. Yeah, you got things you can improve conditions on. Yeah, you got all these different little things. You got moral codes that are really kind of sensible and everything else. But you don't have the way. You don't have the how to walk the walk. And the Tao is how to walk the walk. And by experience, having applied it, I see results that I think just blow away results that I've seen from others. I've seen, very happy, good to be around people who bring up the tone wherever they go. They operate much more at postulates rather than by force or by make wrong or by all these other mechanisms that are sort of acceptable and encouraged in certain Scientology circles. So that's my idea. That's a thought. That's a specific, particular idea when I say integrate. That's one of the ways that I integrate. Okay? And I think it makes Scientology a lot more palatable to people who haven't dealt with it before. I think the result is far better than when it's done in a cloistered cult-type practice where you're required to believe things, you're required to act in certain ways, you're required to adopt certain moralities. And I think that it also creates a product of people who have benefited from Scientology who are far more able to communicate those benefits with reality. And my reality on that is I can't make time to get done the things I need to get done. I'm trying to write books. I keep promising them, but I can't because the people, the word of mouth, that just keep coming and coming and coming, and I can't keep the door shut. So I know that, and this sort of this is sort of an allusion to this point I was making in my last blog post about integral theory, about how will Scientology be communicated in the future. I have reality on it, that when it's when it's practiced in an integral way, in an integrated fashion, it sells itself. There's no problem with it. You don't have to worry and fret about it. I mean, I see people freaking out about we're going to create org boards and we got to have management systems and we got to have centers for this and we need people to watch these people who watch those people who are watching those people. It reminds me of that ad on the freaking BBC show watching, John Kelly, what's his name? John Sweeney being watched by the church, being watched by the BBC, it's like spy versus spy. It's like insanity, folks. The technology works. Apply it. Do it, okay? Don't be a cult member, all right? Learn some things about philosophy. Learn some things about how science is beginning to validate the very process that you're engaging in, okay? It'll make you a better auditor. It'll make you a better practitioner. It'll make you have difficulty keeping people out of your door demanding to get in so that they can get some of this great stuff. So those are my first idea on the subject of integration. And when I talk about integration, I'm not talking about altering and changing on all this other kind of business. I'm talking about expanding your horizons and understanding better that which it is that you're so confounded, or that people become so confounded, fixated on, that they know best, that nobody wants to go near them to partake of it. And that's what's becoming of the subject. So, that's my pitch for integration.